To determine how many guests will be in the restaurant, we must first determine how long it takes the restaurant to turn over each seat. Each customer dines for 50 minutes, and then it takes the restaurant another 10 minutes to clean and prep the tables for the new customers. Therefore, each seat is occupied for a total of 60 minutes, or 1 hour. We can then apply Little's law, which is I is equal to R times T. We're going to be solving for the rate, so we can rearrange this as R is equal to I over T. We know there's an inventory of 50 seats, and we just solved for the time, which was 1 hour. So therefore, in the initial setup, there's 50 guests per hour that will be coming through the restaurant. Over the course of 4 hours, that'll be equal to 200 guests. Now for B, we're going to need to create an ROIC tree. So let's go ahead and do that. ROIC is broken down into profit and invested capital. The invested capital we know is equal to $200,000. Profit is then broken down into revenues and costs. Starting with the revenues, that's simply the revenue per guest, which has been given to us as $20, and the number of guests, which we've just solved for to be 200. Costs, there's fixed and variable. The fixed are equal to both labor and overhead. The labor, we know that there's 20 workers, each of which are paid $90 a night. So we know that is equal to $1,800. The overhead, which also including rent, we know to be equal to $1,000. The variable is a food expense in this case, and it's subject to the number of guests times the material. We know that it's $5.50 per material, or per guest, so we can also include that here. So now that we've created the whole ROIC tree, we can kind of multiply these numbers through, and we get a revenue number of $4,000 per night and costs of $3,900 a night. So therefore, they're making $100 of profit per evening, and over the year, they're making $36,500 of profit. So therefore, to calculate the ROIC, given these current data points, we know that that is then equal to 36,500 over the invested capital, which is 200,000, for an ROIC equal to 0.1825. Now for part C, we would need to determine the new number of guests per night. Now, reapplying Little's law, we still have the same inventory, but rather than an hour, we know this to be 55 out of 60. Every 60 minutes, they can turn over a new seat. So solving for our new R, we get an R of 54.5, and over the 4 hours, we can now seat 218 guests as opposed to 200. If we were to filter that back through both the number of guests here and the number of guests here, our updated profit would then be equal to $131,765. So if we divide that by the ROIC, or the invested capital of 200,000, we get a new ROIC of 66%. For part D, by changing or reducing the overhead charges, you don't see quite as much of a lift in ROIC. There we would just reduce this overhead to $900 and filter that through, and you'd end up with a new ROIC of 0.365.